Hey everybody, welcome back to the Reboot Era. If you're new here, I'm Dre, and I'm sharing my post-layoff journey in real time. And before we hop into today's topic, I'm going to go over a few rebrandings that you might see. So on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, the at has changed from the Reboot Era to at Draycation. And the reason for that is back when I was at Raytheon, I had a manager who, when I was taking vacation, asked me, "Hey, your name's Dre and you're taking vacation. Can you please put on your calendar Draycation?" And I was like, that feels so conceited and like narcissistic, but sure, I'll do it. And honestly, ever since then, every company I've worked at, it's just stuck. And every time I take a vacation or I put out like a request in, I'd always update my calendar with Draycation. And I wanted to pivot away. The reboot era is not a business. The reboot era is a space. It's a conversation. It's in an environment where I want everyone to feel welcome to share their stories and be here and join this conversation. The TikTok and Instagram is going to be way more just like my face doing things, follow along. Hopefully, it's funny to share about what this roller coaster is like being laid off and navigating the process. YouTube will continue to maintain what I've been doing, which is like sharing out content and resources and building things for everyone to leverage and utilize. And then YouTube Shorts will follow the same thing as TikTok and Instagram. So you'll see that slight little shift. But again, don't worry too much about that. Today, we're going to dive into something that's completely changed how I've approached interviews. And that's largely around asking the right questions at the right time to ideally the right person. So a lot of you, it's been 22 days. Today's day 22, post layoff. And a lot of people I'm seeing on LinkedIn are applying, even people who are laid off with me, people who are laid off at Microsoft. Everyone's submitting applications and people are starting to get interviews. It's been a few weeks. And in those interviews, people are still saying after the first round or the second round, they're hearing a rejection. And a lot of it can weigh on the questions that you're asking. Interviews aren't just supposed to be about answering the questions that are asked to you. And in fact, you should flip the script a lot of the time, showing that you know how to ask great questions because you're interviewing the person that's interviewing you as much as they're interviewing you. And it can feel a lot like a black box. You prep, you're constantly going through memorizing what your answers are so that you sound like a perfect fit. And then you walk away from an interview thinking, did I even learn anything real about the role of the company? Or sometimes you walk away and you're like, I nailed that. That was so great. And then you receive the automated email that says they've decided to move forward with other candidates. And all you can sit there and think is, I wish I had some feedback. So part of that is, did you ask the right questions? If you've done the research and you mapped out questions that you've asked in the past and you don't really know how they're holding up and asking, I've actually created a really cool sheet that's going to outline, it's about 8 to 12 questions per interview round. And I broke it up through the first stage was typically going to be your recruiter screen. The second stage, which this is the where it can vary. And the second stage that I looked at, I did the hiring manager. And the third stage, it's going to be like a group or a peer interview. Think of a panel interview. The fourth might be like a director or like executive level kind of final interview just to make sure you're a good fit. And then the last is not so much an interview as it is a call to give you an offer and kind of the questions you can ask during that portion of the call. So the first stage with the recruiter, I'm going to talk first. So this video is going to be me talking. And at the end, I'm going to show you the resource that I have. If you want to jump ahead to the end or you want to hop into the link below in the description, which will link directly to the Google Drive, which will house this resource. It's called the Reboot Era Interview Questions to Ask. So stage one, recruiter screen. Really, the job here is to get the lay of the land. Think of the things like role clarity, team structure, pay range, and timeline. Those are probably questions that are going to be asked in a way, role clarity. So the recruiter's probably going to ask you if you're clear on what the expectations are of the role. Team structure, they're probably going to describe the team. Pay range, they're not going to usually offer you the pay range, but oftentimes they'll either tell you the maximum or they'll ask you for your range here, and as well as a timeline for how long you can expect to be here. But not every recruiter does that. I would say if they've covered those four things, they are a great recruiter, and you can probably expect amazing communication throughout your interview process. If they don't ask those things, it's no ding against them. They are doing this a lot with a lot of different people, but you want to make sure you're very clear. Things that you could ask are things like, what prompted the role, opening? How urgent is the hiring timeline? Is there any flexibility in the salary range? And what does the interview process look like from here? Those things just show you're interested, right? This round, it sets the tone and shows them that you're organized, informed, and you're not here to waste anyone's time. The next stage is going to be, in my process, usually with the hiring manager, and you're going to go deeper. So this is really talking to your potential future boss, and you want to make sure that you're asking questions that show you're already thinking about or visualizing success. Examples can be, what would success look like in my first 90 days? You're setting this up to understand what other people have done successfully. What challenges is the team facing right now? Getting a lay of the land. How do you give feedback or help your team grow? Starting to open that dialogue and that build a rapport with your potential future manager on what their working style is like. And if they can't clearly answer how they support their team, immediate red flag. And this is where leadership alignment typically becomes super, super clear. Moving on to the next stage, usually this is a team or a peer round. This round is really a vibe check, and you want to get the inside scoop. But I think a really important call out is, don't treat this round like they're your friends. I've made the mistake of going into interviews with people who were peers or going to be my peers, and I opened up with, I don't want to say the most authentic me there is, but I definitely deal with things with a sense of humor that not everyone appreciates. And I went in there thinking, oh, you're 20 something, you're gonna give me the inside scoop. And that didn't happen. I joked around a little too much. And I don't think I bombed the interview by any means, but I definitely think that was a big deciding factor between like me and someone else. I'm all about transparency though. So I'm going to be as transparent as possible with anybody that I'm interviewing, as well as the person I'm interviewing with. So that's just something that I like to preface with. In this round, when you're talking to team or peers as an interview, things that you can ask are, what's a typical day actually like here? What's something you'd wish leadership would change? How do you all handle disagreements? What tools or rituals keep you all in sync? And this is where you start to uncover the real culture behind the job posting fluff. Now, the next stage doesn't always happen for everyone. I know that there are companies out there that do 7 to 12 different rounds of interviews for a job you're going to be told that you didn't get anyways. And that's insane. And I'm sorry if that's you and you're being put through that to waste your time. If that's not you, a potential stage you might run into is an executive or a final round. And this is usually zooming out to a big picture strategy. So it's typically with the big leader of the group, and they just want to know how you would fit with the team. And this is your way to understand the big picture. So things that you could ask, what's your vision for this department over the next year? How do you personally define and protect company culture? What's the biggest opportunity for growth here? And this is how you'll show that you're not just job hunting, you're actually planning for your future. Lastly, the fifth stage is an offer or a negotiation. Usually, this will be in a call from a recruiter or a hiring manager letting you know that they've wanted to move forward with an offer. And they'll either verbally give you the offer or they'll let you know that they're typing it up and it will be in your inbox by end of week. In this stage, typically, if they call you, this makes for a better conversation. So you're here because they want you, and you have to shift into advocating mode. Don't let the excitement get to your head too quickly about being picked. be happy, but remember, you want the best for you. So some questions that you can ask is, can we revisit compensation after a successful 6-month ramp? Now, I will say, I think large companies don't typically do this because they're going to come back with, we have a standard review cycle and compensation is looked at once a year with standard of living or wage increases, blah, blah, blah. Smaller companies, startups, freelancing, all of those things, they typically are open to having that conversation. Another question is, what support will I get during onboarding? This is important. If they don't have an answer for you that's concrete, could be a red flag. And then lastly, how do you evaluate performance and growth? So this is a really good understanding to, now that they've offered it to you, they can give you the inside scoop of what does their annual, biannual, quarterly review process look like? How are they using it? And if anything just feels a little off here, you could always ask for another meeting with the hiring manager before you make a decision so that you can ask way more in-depth questions now that they've offered you the job. Let me share what I have. I've put all these together in a free downloadable interview question tracker. It's sorted by stage, question type, and even red flag checkboxes because let's be honest, that is important. The link is down in the description. There is no email gate. You just got to use it if you want to. As you prep for interviews, as you get ready to go into rounds, open this up and take a look at it. So with that, let me share my screen and I'll just walk through a few more of the questions, but I'm not going to go super in depth. Okay. So the Reboot Era interview questions to ask is the title of this document. You can see the interview stage in column A. I've broken it out by recruiter, hiring manager, team panel, executive final, and offer final discussion. Here's a list of those different questions. The purpose, so you can get an understanding of like when you're asking this question, why are you asking it? Who you're asking, recruiter, hiring manager, potentially interviewers, and then red flag context. So these are like, I'm just going to run through one or two, but can you tell me more about the team I'd be joining is the question. And a red flag, a vague or evasive response may indicate a lack of clarity or team instability. Another one that I think is cool is, let's just grab, how do you often check in with your direct reports? Extremely infrequent or micromanaging responses may raise concern. So if one thing I like to do is when I ask the hiring manager a question and it's something about their leadership style or their management style, if I know one of the peers is reporting to them, which I might just ask during the peer or panel interview, if I know that they're reporting to them, I'll ask that follow-up. Oh, by the way, when I was speaking with the hiring manager, they let me know that their management style and checking in with their direct reports is insert their answer. Could you tell me about a time when or how they do this, or an example weekly about how your check-ins go, what those one-on-ones look like? This is a really great time to check and see how that goes, because if those answers don't align, someone's lying. So go ahead, check this out, use it. Again, please subscribe, follow this journey. Hopefully this is helpful for you. If you know someone who's in the process, send this to them, ask them to subscribe so I can keep making more videos for everyone, and we will talk more tomorrow. Thanks.